Welcome back from that. Now I'm being joined by Adamak Sydney, the former presidential aspirant of the People's Redemption Party. We'll be discussing the International Women's Day, Digital Innovation and Technology for Gender Equality, and Nigeria and gender equality. That's a wonderful conversation to have at this time when we looked at the number of House of Representatives, in fact, the lawmakers, and it's alarming how we have dwindled. But I must welcome you to the program at Damak Sydney.
Thank you, Joy ASONYE, for having me here.
Exactly. So I'm not sure if you also looked at that when the returning certificates were being given to those who got to the 10th Assembly. Were you shocked at the number? I mean, we're just recording 16 women. That's less than it was before. And we're now talking about the International Women's Day. What an irony, I must say. How do you feel when you look at that, and the House is dominated by men, and we are talking about representation that will get women to the fore, the girl child to the fore in terms of technology and innovation?
Well, you know, to be fair to the system, they always say that every political period is equitable. That's the word that is used. So it's an open table for everyone to come out and fight for a position, you know, in the place of leadership. But because we have seen an overwhelming disbalance in how the polity works, you know, in our immediate society, I think that will be the first reason why we have seen that dwindle, you know, as far as how many women got these return tickets per se. I'm sure that many persons may brag and say, you know, some parties or a lot of parties agreed to give women even free tickets to run. But I will surprise you, it's not as simple as just merely saying that, you know. So seeing the disparity in the numbers, the percentage of male representation as against female representation, you know, in the House, yeah, it gives us a lot of concern, because there is literally no how that a large house of all males can understand we call them those fine lines, you know, that affect women, you know, and how it plays out, you know, on the development of our society. Fine lines that we talk about are both are very maternal issues, you know, that affect the female gender, you know, and there is a serious need, you know, following the words of the UN Secretary General, there is a serious need for faster advancement in gender equality, you know, and we would like to see a lot of that coming into the Nigerian society.
Okay. Now we're talking about innovation and technology. I had a conversation earlier before the program, and somebody said sometimes these themes are not very relatable to Africans. While it is very necessary to have young girls in Africa champion the technology and ICT sector, we have not put what is necessary to get that happening. So when you say digital innovation and technology, Africa is not ready, but what are your thoughts?
We are ready, but we haven't gotten the right sort of support that is required to have that level of input, you know, going in with the girl child or the female gender. You know, how can we say we are not ready? We are ready to put in our quota now. And I think that, like, I rightly always like to say that we have, you know, scientifically, it has been proven that women mature faster than, you know, the male gender, you know, at a certain age. I think between 5 and 7, there is a faster pace of growth in the girl child. Now, if we are to go by that statistic, okay, I feel that if in Nigeria, you know, or Africa at large, we look at how we can balance how much input, especially when we talk about resource that goes into equipping from the primary level in the educational system of Nigeria, because after all, everybody understands that Nigeria is the giant of Africa.
Right.
Now we need to set the precedence. We need to take the bull by the horns and see how we can push for the advancement, you know, of scientific and technological knowledge and where and resource can go from primary into tertiary institutions, because we do understand that there is so much growth that can be experienced in society if that were to happen. Say we're not ready, we are ready. We can't say we're not ready, but can we find the right partners? I know there are partners out there, but can we find the right partners, starting with that statistic, which is the men in power? Can we find the right partners who are able to not just listen, but also follow through on policy agreements that have been reached with the women towards the advancement of technology, technological innovation,
Exactly.
scientific advancement, you know, in our society? It starts from there, because they have held the ranks as far as the leadership position. We have them heading 70 to 30 over time. So can we find the right partners starting from that leadership base, and then we start to take it to international organizations? But on home ground, we need to find the right partners who can listen and also work with us to get resources in the right places.
We've had a tremendous and appreciable progress when it comes to the private sector trying to enhance this. We've seen more, I mean, when you bring it down to the secondary school and basics, we are seeing more vibrantly technology and ICT being taught in private schools than the public schools. There is the lacuna, if you ask me.
Absolutely.
But how can we upscale this? Because it's obvious we've not seen that that political will that would ensure that there is that education for all. I mean, we are still talking about a curriculum that is almost my father's age. So what would you say if we have to push the innovation and technology, ICT, STEM, if we have to push all of this further, the government should do? We have a new administration that would come on in a couple of months. What would you say the first thing should be, bearing in mind that it is often said that technology is the untapped gold, is the new oil, as it's often said. So how can Nigeria tap into this new oil, especially to cover the gender equality space?
You know, I think I should start from somewhere. There has to be, first of all, a clear understanding in and within our leaders at this moment. The new leadership needs to understand that there is a lacuna. Now, once that is understood, or should I say, how can they understand that there is a lacuna? Look at the world today. Japan, China, Korea are thriving economically off the invention and production of scientific and technological ware. Where is Nigeria? All we ever talk about is made. That's not even selling. That's not even acceptable. There is no real resource being pushed in the space of advancing research. Let's start. Let me even go more direct. Scientific research, technological research.
Right.
Not to talk about equipping, you know, the educational space, because as little as 5 years old, I assure you, okay, I think I must have been maybe 9 or slightly in between that age, between 5 and 9, when I had the grace of understanding to invent a combustion machine. We're talking about a little girl child. Count how many years since then. ever before where we are now, where I can say, okay, we've grown to a point of, you know, trying to contest for a political office at the highest cadre. What's been the growth since then till now? What wasn't there that we still do not have in our immediate society? One of those things is an educational space that allows, you know, kids, the girl child, the boy child, they even, you know, we need to go there because the same space is provided for both genders. You know, what's the provision that has been made? What real policies and implementation strategies and agencies have been brought to the fore to make sure that every school, you know, both public, be it public, especially
Public.
because, yes, especially public,
schools.
because that's where the majority of average to low income families attend. Now, there has to be, you know, if we are serious about, you know, attaining true sustainable development, there has to be that keen understanding in the leaders who were taking up office now that it is a must do, or else the society will suffer futuristically because we're going, the world is going ultra modern, Joy, ASONYE, and Nigeria should not be playing catch up. We should be leading the pack, but we are lacking strength. Though we have willpower, we need good leaders who can also support what we have up here that the world is chasing scientifically.
Well, that just brought to mind in one of the campaign trail that the president-elect had, he was talking about those who are often referred to as cyber criminals, those who have learned how to hack, how to defraud people in the cyberspace. And my question would be, do you think he would succeed in taking that dragnet and bringing them into young people who can be vibrant in what they call ethical hacking, for instance, creating chips and applications and all of that? And if you have to suggest steps to indeed achieve that, what would it be?
It's quite funny, Joy, when we talk about hackers. I will suggest that we have a fantastic array of young people who are extremely witty, extremely smart. A lot of Nigerians. Now, let me tell you something. IQ is not calculated on the precedence of your economic status. Whether you come from a poor home, an average home, or a rich home.
Exactly.
That's not how IQ is calculated.
That's true.
Biometrics, you know, genetics, DNA analogy. There's so many things that play into the IQ of a child. Now, we're not seeing that. We call it public school, but public school does not mean that you have children with lesser IQ in those schools. We have children with higher IQs attending all public schools throughout the country. Now, what we are saying is this: there has to be a system that identifies these children, not for the purpose of abusing their intellect, but picking up early what they have and advancing it. There has to be a better space. What were you asking? It's true we have hackers, we have programmers. Why are we not being trained from a tender age to utilize, you know, what we have and throw those into inventions that are futuristic? Rather, what we see Nigeria playing is catch up to the Western world, to Europe, you know, and Asia, who borrow half the ideas that we have. And I say that without respite, you know. The truth is, so many inventions that are working in the world now were created by persons from the African soil, especially Nigeria. And by the way, I'm one of them. But because we do not have a society that respects mine and your and every child's intellectual gifting,
Right.
you know, and ability. I mean, I can talk about even my older brother, while we were young, was able to, create magic out of nothing. Touch electrical appliances. Why are we not identifying the skill of these children and saying, I think this one should go to the computer room, let's see what they can
Right.
do. Can we have a space where they're able to learn what programming is? Do you understand what coding is? Let's see how fast this child can pick up. If your IQ is between 140 to 250, we need to have you in special classes,
Exactly.
learning things. But if you do not start to put these in place, don't expect magic to happen when they turn into an age where they have rights to advance themselves individually. You as government haven't done that for them. So if I, as a young person who has, I have a gifting naturally on how to program things, but I've not taught the computer. If I get to 16 and I am free to make my own choices, I will quickly learn. And if I learn the negative way, then that's what I'm going to do. And then if I live in a society where after even going through the educational system, I'm still not getting a job, and I know how to do programming, and I can switch it around to do a bit of hacking, be rest assured, I might just become a bank hacker because my country has refused to employ me rightly to do the right thing.
Okay, let's talk about the gender equality component of the theme for this year's International Women's Day, and I would like us to bring it down to Nigeria. Where do you think we are when it comes to gender equality? You contested or you ran for office as president of Nigeria. Why a lot of people found that daring? My question would be: would you say that you did not emerge because Nigeria was not ready for a female president?
Well, let's see. How do I talk about this? In all fairness, yes, there is a need for radical growth, especially in the aspect of eliminating illiteracy in our society. Let's start from there.
Okay.
There'll never be gender equality when we have 74% of the population illiterate in any given community, be it in the north, be it in the east, be it in the west, or in the south of Nigeria.
Right.
And this applies to the whole world too. We have educated people. Do we have literate people who understand that there should not be an oppression of a gender? Where we can adopt, let's use the word first, adopt first every good value that is found in this gender. You're female. Let me start with you. If we know as a society that we can tap the resources that you have, irrespective of your gender, and turn that into something magical for society, maybe sort of like a scientific invention or a technological invention. I have a couple as an inventor, being that I am,
Right.
Now I say, so what's the idea? Should the inventions that I have or you have go to the back door, because of our gender? Then I think if that is the sort of society that we are still living in, then we have ways to grow, to grow and to go. Because you do not blame society for not developing, where you and I have ideas that are maverick, that can either alter the conditions of power, the power sector.
Right.
And nobody's listening to them.
And that is where I would like us to speak about before I let you go, as we're running out of time. But you mentioned something that's very important. Women are often considered to always want people to see them, as against coming out like the male folks. If a boy child has an idea, he wants the world to see it immediately, see it as it is. But do you think that women, African women especially, bring sentiment to the talent that they have, and so very often they are at the back burner instead of shining with what they have? You just mentioned having a maverick idea, but because you're a woman, there are sentiments around it, the peculiarities and the dynamic of you being a woman comes into play before you get help. But the man too doesn't even wait for you to question that.
Well, I can tell you from my personal experience, I think once or twice where one or two of the maverick ideas that we talked about had, been shopped around. That's the right word. We tried to get it to a government office or a governor's office or something. The challenges, it's a mammoth, it's a stream of challenges that you face, out there, Joy. It is vicious. I can sympathize.
Too vicious for the woman.
No. We're stronger than what they make us out to be, but because of the backlog of history, many of these girls come from homes that tell you shouldn't be doing that. You're a girl. Why should you want to? Don't go into a space where boys are supposed to thrive because you're a girl. Now that's why I said there's so many baggages that society in itself must be willing to help the girls and not just say you're looking for attention. That's abuse verbally as well. And we battle it, as it were. So what we are saying is, and back to that little question.
Ada, we have really run out of time. So it would have been nice to continue this conversation, but we've run out of time. We've been discussing with Ada Max Sydney, former presidential aspirant with the People's Redemption Party. Thank you so much for your insight.
Thank you.
I am Joy ASONYE. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Have a wonderful evening.